take two, Corey Walsh.
Take two.
We're
back at it again.
On this Friday, the 13th edition, May 13th, to be exact, of Libservative. You have to forgive us. I'm on vacation. I've been drunk for 3 days. Corey's been drunk for 3 days just because he's at home.
We're just going to chalk it up to just bad luck on the 13th. Dan's been drunk for 3 days on vacation. I'm not on vacation. I've just been drunk.
I think our show is perfect for describing the scariness of the world here on Friday the 13th. I'm coming to you from wine and cherry country here in northern Michigan.
Good old TC.
It's been unseasonably warm. Wish that would shut up. So there might be some hiccups. We're dealing with a different setup here, but as always, he's Corey Walsh
and he is Dan Griffin. And you know what? I got a little PSA for the women out there. Just so you know, ladies, mansplaining is short for men explaining.
Is that what we just did?
Yeah.
I can't smoke cigars in the studio at home because it's in the house. But
I know, look at you.
I'm outside on an enclosed deck here, so I'm going to enjoy this nice southern draw while we're doing the show. I hope nobody minds. I mean, I hope the FDA isn't planning on getting rid of.
That's not menthol, is it, Dan?
There's no menthol.
And real quick before we get started, make sure to like, follow, and share the podcast. Libservative Podcast is found on all of your social media and podcast platforms. We are on YouTube at Libservative Pod. I think it's just Libservative on YouTube. I don't know why I started off with that one.
You'll find it. It's been a struggle.
We are on Instagram and Twitter at Libservative Pod. We're on Facebook at Libservative. We're on Twitch at Libservative Pod. And you want to reach out to us directly, it's libservativepod@gmail.com. And we are on TikTok. And I have been slacking like a motherfucker on making videos, but that is at Libservative Podcast.
Me too.
Like, follow, and share. Make sure to give us some ratings. That helps us boost our numbers up, and so more people can listen to this craziness that you're listening to.
I've been slacking too, but I've been drunk for 3 days. And we were just talking about this before the show started. Every time I do this to myself, every single fucking time I go on vacation, I'm super excited, get the dogs packed up. I want to play some golf. I'm gonna smoke 50,000 cigars. I'm gonna relax, and I'm gonna come back from vacation refreshed. But what happens is I drink myself into a stupor that makes me more fucking exhausted by the time I get home from my vacation. I still have 3 days left, I think, or something like that. You lose track of days as well, but I think I'm gonna be goddamn exhausted by the time I get home. I'm not gonna be ready to go back to work.
But you're gonna have to, because that's the American dream, Dan.
Yeah, just ask the Amazon workers. They absolutely love their job.
They love their American dream.
We were going to start with a little sloppy seconds here this evening, Corey Walsh, because we got some comments from some listeners last week when it came to our very sloppy explanation of what codifying a law means, as we talked about Roe last week, and also what Roe actually represents as legal precedent, right?
Yeah. No, we got thrown off when we kind of answered the question in some marble-mouthed fucking sloppy ass answer, because
it's probably not going to get any better, but we're going to try.
Right? Yeah. So one of our new listeners, his name is Mayorkis. We were talking about how the Democrats had the chance to codify Roe versus Wade countless times and take it away from it just being a ruling by the Supreme Court and make it an actual law. And he said, well, couldn't the GOP just repeal that law? And yes, they could. And I guess this is where the answer is. I wish that I said last week that, okay, so based on what we have now, the procedures and everything that we have now, that if it got passed and codified, which it could have, then what the GOP would have to do now to overturn that is face a court and get a supermajority to repeal it, which would be faced with filibusters. And then they would have to find a supermajority in the court to oversee a filibuster to create a new amendment that, in a situation that we're talking about, which is at this point hypothetical, they would have to create an amendment to supersede a previous amendment that would have codified Roe v. Wade. And then they would have had to create this amendment and then jump through hoops, facing a filibuster, actually doing all the groundwork to get representatives to hold a majority in both the Congress, and which means the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then it would also have to get to a president, where a president who has veto power was also aligned with their viewing to actually veto this bill.
So
So
very, very, very similar to how prohibition was done away with. There was an amendment that made prohibition a thing, made booze illegal, and there had to be another amendment to basically make that amendment null and void. And we're talking
right,
obviously at a federal scale and with the Constitution and whatnot, but that's a similar thing.
right. And so it would be a lot like, so yes, in theory it could be repealed, but you'd have to do a lot more legwork, which our legislative branch is known to not do.
Wait, we have to do work? We don't just have to virtue signal this time?
They'd have to do it, which actually goes into the next conversation we're going to have about Alito's opinion that was leaked. And yeah, they'd have to do a lot more legwork, and and instead of just electing one president who gets to appoint judges who are unelected officials based on our representative democracy that make these decisions, that it's a lot easier to just overturn a precedence like this than it would be if it was a codified law. Does that make more sense? Is that a little bit more?
It's an extra, yeah. It's a huge extra hurdle that the GOP would have to go through.
Yeah. So they could do it, but like it's a hell of a lot harder to go through all the legislation, which is by design.
As to where, so I guess a simpler way to put it really is that with the way Roe is now as precedent, the Supreme Court gets to make the decision on its own. As to where if it was a codified law, we would be looking at many more hoops that have to be jumped through by other branches of government to repeal Roe if it were actually codified law.
Yeah. To where right now, it's just a ruling by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Whereas it would be a law that the Supreme Court would have to interpret.
So again, if you're one of those folks that's out there talking about how evil the Republicans are, and in certain ways they are, I agree. However,
yeah, there's no disagreement.
They did exactly what they said they were trying to do for the last 50 years. If you want to put the blame on somebody, blame the Democrats for not codifying this law.
Because they could have.
Because they could have, and I'd be cool with it.
And this is coming from two people who are pro-choice, but you know what, Dan? I don't know if you're in agreement on me with this, but as I've been reading into Roe v. Wade, it's kind of trash. Is that a hot take? Can you be pro-choice? Can you be pro-choice and anti-Roe v. Wade?
You can. I think you absolutely can. It's because it is a flimsy law. I mean,
it's a lot, and it's such a precedent. So us as being like 30-year-olds, we've just grown up with it. So like the law of the land has just been, if a woman needs an abortion, they can get an abortion. So we've gotten comfortable with it, especially for people like you and I who are younger, who don't know a world without it.
Yeah.
And then it's just something that just seemed like, well, that's just a thing.
And we've seen bad precedents overturned, multiple times.
Oh, yeah. No, precedence isn't law. Everyone says, but this is like, everyone's in outrage saying, well, this is precedence. Like you can't just overturn precedents. But you know what? You know what also is precedence at one time, Dan? Plessy versus Ferguson.
I was going to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Splitting up black kids and white kids in school.
Yeah, separate but equal.
Yeah,
Plessy versus Ferguson.
That's what I was looking for.
And then guess what? That was precedence for like 20, 30. It might even have been like roughly 50 years. Yeah, that was done in the 19-teens.
Segregation. Why couldn't I think of that word? Why couldn't I think of the word
segregation? Yeah, separate but equal. And guess what overdid that precedence was Brown versus Board of Education.
Yeah.
So like right now, precedence being overturned isn't going in the favor of any of us who think body autonomy is body autonomy. But precedence is just that. It's just what's interpreted based on rulings in the law, and that it should have absolutely been codified. And they had the chance to do it. But instead they decided to just string along the voters, vote blue versus who, because guess what? If you let those dirty Republicans win, and then they're just going to overturn fucking Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
But we're not going to make it a law, because if we do, then that's just one thing that you guys aren't going to vote for us for.
You know what's so funny is like have you ever gotten shit for playing the both sidesism game. You ever gotten shit for that?
Kind of. But when someone tells me that, I was like, yeah, well, then you're just not ready for this conversation.
Well, yeah, you don't want to pick a side. You're right. To me, like maybe this is a hot take. I think both sidesism is a good thing.
It's also called nuance.
Yeah, and you were dealing with both so much. You were dealing with so much both sidesism with when it comes to opinions on Roe, because I think the reason that the GOP has wanted to repeal this for so long is it's for a voter base, right? To me, I don't think they actually give a shit. I really don't think they actually give a shit whether
How many of those Republican senators and congressmen do you think are on the sly or getting abortions taken care of?
I mean, how you asking me to give you a percentage?
Well, because Cawthorn mentioned something anywhere near that, and they're just throwing him out to the fucking wolves.
Well, we both know
letting go of his wheelchair on top of a hill and say, "Get the fuck out of here."
We both know Bristol Palin didn't have an abortion, and maybe she should have. Oh, am I allowed to say that? I'm on vacation. I can say what I want.
Hey, I'm on vacation. He's on vacation from his problems.
So that's it. I mean, I hope that was a better explanation. Judge Corey helping us.
Yeah, real quick, I'm gonna ask you what you're drinking.
I am drinking Whistle Pig Rye 10-year.
Ooh, nice.
And then I have a nice Centennial IPA from Founders. It is. It's actually stronger than I thought. I've been drinking them all week. I was like, this is only like 4%. I finally looked at the can this morning. I was like, holy shit, it's a 7.5%. No wonder I've been bomb for 3 days.
I'm drinking some. This might be a callback. I think I brought this up on the show before. Third Win bourbon.
Is that a Scottish flag on the front of that bottle?
I think it's like a Scottish flag, and it's also like I think it's like I forget what the flag stands for, but it's also like a naval flag, and it means something, but I forget. But it's actually a bourbon made here in Michigan, which technically doesn't make it a bourbon. I get it for all of our very legalistic bourbon drinkers out there, but it's a damn good bourbon.
It's the best bourbon. It's the only bourbon to drink.
I would say it's the best bourbon made in Michigan. Maybe not Kentucky.
He's got a great memory, this guy.
Well,
Thanks, man.
That didn't come through.
I heard it.
Let's try it again.
He's got a great memory, this guy.
I heard it the first time and the second time.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks.
It was a little quiet on my end. However, we wanted to take an opportunity today because I feel like we have shit on liberals a lot in recent weeks.
Yes.
Very true.
And before we get away from it, I said something really quick that I want to elaborate on.
Oh, go
I
for
said that I'm kind of against Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, let's leave.
That's a big hot take. So I need to elaborate on this for our leftist listeners.
We are gonna, but here's before you do that, to set this up, I'm just gonna say we're gonna shit on the GOP tonight. We're gonna shit on them hard. So go ahead, Corey.
No. So I'm going to start off by saying I'm 100% pro-choice. Body autonomy is body autonomy. I thought of a lot of our Republican friends really got this idea when vaccine mandates were being floated around. I really thought that a lot of eyes were opened about this. But pro-choice and Roe v. Wade, they're relatable, but they're not.
They don't have to be synonymous.
They're not synonymous. That's the word I'm looking for. They're not. They don't have to be like with each other. Roe v. Wade is actually, like, when you dive into it, Roe v. Wade is actually a very flimsy law, or a very flimsy precedent, as evidenced by the fact that right now we're talking about just stripping away the rights of millions of women in our country, just like that, right?
Right.
So Roe v. Wade, the precedence was set on the 9th Amendment, which basically says that the federal law no federal law can be made that infringes on the rights of people's personal lives, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In interpretation based on Roe v. Wade. And then the other one that's floated around is the 14th Amendment, which was made after the Civil War, which says that states can't infringe on people's personal liberties, life, and pursuit of happiness without due process. Now, that term right there, without due process, is important, So these two are the two amendments that are floated that are supposed to back Roe v. Wade. But Roe v. Wade itself, when we talk about the 9th Amendment, there was no federal law against abortion. When the 14th Amendment was made, I think almost all of the states already had laws about abortion. So federal law had nothing to do with it at that point. So then you have to go, oh, well, it was the 14th Amendment that the states can't do this, right? Well, due process is the process of going through the whole legal legwork of legislation, the judicial work, and things like that, going and having rulings in courts and things like that. So if a state goes through all of that and actually makes a law that infringes on the rights of women, then that is due process. So when somebody comes in and then goes, or when the government comes in and goes through the lengths of due process and actually says, well, we're going to do this, like put any sort of infringement on abortion, then they're following the rules of the 14th Amendment. So Roe v. Wade, based on the precedent of the 9th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, is a very, very, very weak argument.
To the point where you have people that are pro Roe, and they will say things like, well, we don't know exactly where it is in the 9th or 14th Amendment.
And that's
but we know it's in there.
Dude, that's almost in the opinion.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
That's almost like what the opinion says. Like, it's not explicitly mentioned. And then when people talk about it, they casually mention the 14th or the 9th because they're not exactly sure. And it's just, it's pretty wild that it's lasted this long. And that's because we've had a liberal leaning court that they kind of just didn't really look into it. But now we have a conservative leaning court, and they're saying, no, there's no precedent. Like, there's no constitutional backing for this. And you know what? They're kind of right. And when you actually read Alito's opinion, that's kind of what he says.
Well, and isn't that kind of the bummer about this conversation is the way that the court has been brought into the culture wars. I was actually just having an argument here the other night.
They've been pretty apolitical.
It was actually a really nice debate about, but it got shifted over into just culture war stuff. Like, in particular, I was talking about Brett Kavanaugh. Like, Brett Kavanaugh's probably not a good dude, right? It sounds like he's probably not a good dude, but my point was like, okay, what does him being not a good dude have to do with his ability to interpret the Constitution? Because that's what the Supreme Court's supposed to do. I don't like the guy. I wish he had never made the court, but he's there. And I feel like so far, and Amy Coney Barrett as well, another person I didn't really want to see sitting on this court, I feel like they've done a pretty goddamn decent job of interpreting the Constitution, which is their sole fucking purpose.
If you're an originalist. So the way they interpret it is definitely very
it's leaning.
Opinion-based, yeah.
It's leaning, but they do such a good job, even if you disagree with it, of backing it up, right? And so you don't have to.
That's their job, yeah.
That's absolutely their job. It's their only job. It's a hard job. It's a time-consuming job. It's a job I don't fucking want, but it is their job.
You don't think you'd make a good judge?
Fuck no.
Is it egotistical of me to think that I could sit up there and be like, I could do an okay job?
Judge Corey Walsh.
Judge Corey Walsh.
Here he is.
The first Irishman in the Supreme Court.
Well, you do realize,
maybe, I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
You do realize, in order to sit on the Supreme Court, you have to have a law degree from either Yale or Harvard, or
I don't think so. Well, apparently right now, yeah, but I don't think you actually have to have a degree.
It's so you look. I mean, I think Amy Coney Barrett is the only one that, including I'm blanking on her name, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the new one coming in. I think Amy Coney Barrett is the only one that does not have an Ivy League law degree.
Yeah, I think you're right.
She's Notre Dame. She's a Notre Dame girl.
Yeah, the Fighting Irish. Which is, side note, you know where they got that name from, right?
Right.
They fought KKK members. That's why they're called the Fighting Irish. That's so funny. I love it. I hate Notre Dame because I'm a Michigan fan as sports teams, but goddamn, hell yeah, that is a badass name to have. The Fighting Irish.
Well, yeah.
When is that name going to be considered cultural appropriation?
Well, I can tell you as an Irishman, I'm not offended by it, and I as a Michigan fan myself, I also don't like Notre Dame. So,
but yeah, so like that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like Roe v. Wade sucks because of how flimsy it is. And that we need like Jesus Christ, how could we not have a partisan bill that comes out and that just says new amendment, body autonomy is body autonomy, and your personal rights are definitely, they may not extend past your body, but they 100% include your body. And this goes for mask or not necessarily even mask mandates. I get public safety, but like vaccines, abortions,
Right.
fucking hell, tattoos, prostitution, drugs. Like, I mean, we can get super libertarian into it, but personal rights and personal liberties on your own body. You know what? Like I said before in my monologue last week, I feel like women are smart enough to make this decision for themselves.
100%. Yeah.
And I'm tired of the bullshit arguments that you hear from either side, that the 1% that either side fixates on, right? And now, granted, this, I don't want to come off as callous when I talk about the 1% that the right tries to blast, but there's like roughly 1% of abortions is because of rape and incest.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people fixate on when they say that abortion should be legal.
Because
now, absolutely, for that 1%, they absolutely should be legal. But then on the flip side of it, like that's one of the biggest arguments why abortion should be legal. They say, well, what about rape and incest? Well, that only makes up like roughly 1% of the actual abortion cases. But then on the flip side, the Democrats go, well, they're using it as a contraceptive. And it's like, well, that's also like 1%, because let's be honest, anybody having an abortion at the point of either 15 weeks or 22 weeks.
You mean the Republicans say they're using it as a
yes. The Republicans use that 1% as a reason why abortion should be outright banned, because people use it as contraceptive.
Right.
And are there shitty people? Absolutely. You know what? And there's actually shitty people involved on both ends of that. The rapists, or people who are deciding to just use abortion as a contraceptive. And I don't want to call them shitty people, but it's like, come on. We have very, very effective contraceptives at this point.
The rapists.
And that I feel like it's
as in allegedly Brett Kavanaugh.
As in allegedly Brett Kavanaugh.
Allegedly Brett Kavanaugh.
Yes.
He should be pro-Roe. What is he doing?
You would think Brett Kavanaugh would be pro-Roe. Yeah, no, and so like if we wanted like really talk about it, the rest of it in the middle is based on personal conversations with somebody and their doctor. And I think that women are smart enough to make these decisions for themselves, that we don't need big daddy government to tell them that they're dumb and that they have to make that decision for them.
Yeah, and as we talked about last week, and this is what we're going to get into, where we're shitting on the GOP. Are you ready to get into that part right now?
Let's do it.
Because look, we've shit on liberals a lot, and I've explained multiple times. I've explained. What do you say?
I said it's because they're in power, and we expect more from them.
Well, and it's not just that. It's because that's always been my political home, man. I've come from the left, so when the left fucks up, it's a lot easier for me to see. I've explained that multiple times on this show, so if you've heard it 100 times, I'm sorry, but for any new listeners, the reason I shit on liberals so much is because that's my political home. So when they're getting it wrong, it's a lot easier for me to call out. But
call out.
Yeah, well, Jesus, I'm close enough to Canada right now. So
it's funny, I'm actually closer.
You are, yeah, you're right. I'd have to hop across a big lake to get there right now. But we do want to shit on the GOP tonight because we think they deserve it. Because Corey and I, or mostly Corey, just gave a nice explanation for why you have to at least, at a minimum, take into account the merit of the argument that Roe is bad law. Okay, whether you agree with, you don't have to agree with that. You might want Roe to stay in place. If I had my druthers, I would like it to stay in place, but I absolutely understand why it will be overturned or likely be overturned. But the GOP can't just stop with that victory, right? They can't stop there. They always have to go the extra step. We've heard Mitch McConnell saying it. We've heard various other Republicans in Congress saying it, that there's going to be a push to outright ban abortion in the United States. Now, here's why that's fucking ridiculous, even if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. It is the epitome of hypocrisy. if it's not okay for Big Daddy federal government to make a law that says abortion has to be legal, it's the same fucking thing when you say abortion has to be illegal. How is it different? Please make it make sense to me.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's what fucking kills me about all of this, dude. It's like we were having the same exact argument, and the retort was exactly the fucking same when it came to vaccines. The left was screaming that you need to inject yourself with a vaccine, which me and you are pro-vaccine, anti-mandate.
100%.
And
it's a very libertarian argument, Corey.
Right. And so we come out and we're like, yeah, we're pro-vaccine, anti-mandate. And then people will say, yeah, but being against the vaccines, you're killing people. And guess what? Right now, the argument about abortion, when the left says that they're pro-choice, which ultimately the vaccine thing was about choice, it was about putting that choice up to the individual. The left says, no, we're pro-choice. And the right goes, but you're killing people.
It's different because they're babies.
Right. And I was really, really digging deep. I couldn't find it, but I know I overheard it, but I couldn't find any like suitable, credible like sources for it. But I know Roe v. Wade was invoked by the right and talking heads when they talked about body autonomy when it came to the vaccine mandates. And now that's just out the window.
Here's a comment from Shitsapusho. He's got it, or she. I don't know what your pronouns are, so I apologize if
that's different. The Sapphic Vibes gave us her pronouns.
I don't
want
to hurt it. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Just Republicans say they're small government, but they want so many things to be made illegal. And you can extrapolate that out to
that's a whole shit itself.
You can extrapolate that out to the social media arguments about how Republicans that start or conservatives, I should say, that start these shitty social media platforms talking about free speech, but they want to ban cursing and they want to ban like Trump's Truth Social. Free speech is what we're all about, but you can't shit on Trump or any of the creators. Right? That's not free speech.
No, the Republicans try to claim they're small government unless it comes to war or anything that they're uncomfortable with.
Which is a lot of things.
Well, far too many things. Yeah.
Books. They don't like books.
CDs, words. Disney.
Words.
Yeah, they're trying to outlaw Disney. And if you even have a fucking Mickey Mouse hat, you're a groomer.
Words. They're gonna make ASL the national language of the United States. You have to sign everything. Be real quiet.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't get it. Like, and again, both sides and both parties are guilty of this. It's like they can never just take a win. They have to go the extra mile. Like I can sit there and look at the GOP and go, they have made me think about Roe as law more than I have ever thought about it in my 33 years of life. Because like you said, Corey, it was just something we were accustomed to. It was just there. It's like, oh yeah, abortions. Abortions are bad. Everybody thinks abortions are bad. Nobody wants an abortion, but like the ability to get one is a good choice for a woman. And I just never thought about Roe beyond that.
Yeah, that's just it. Like it's like now us having a lack of uteruses. We're deuteruses without uteruses.
Uteri.
Yeah, we're deuteri without uteri. It's easy for us to like just nonchalantly talk about it, but like it is a big deal. Like it's something that like I said before, it's something that's going to be taking away the rights of millions of people. But that stroke of a pen that potentially may happen is the arbitrariness of it, if that's even a fucking word. Before that stroke of the pen happens, we've grown up with abortions being legal.
Well, and you know what another thing is too, Corey, this is something I was thinking about earlier today, which is make no mistake, like the GOP and anybody that wants to make abortion illegal or even just overturn Roe, they're not doing it in good faith.
It's a pander to their base.
They're exactly. They're not. This isn't a good. Even though it's that's what upsets me about it. Like even though Roe is a flimsy law, and you can make a good argument for why it should be overturned. Most of these Republicans they're not doing it in good faith. They're doing it because they have to pander to their evangelical base, and they have to, it's nothing short of a virtue signal. That's all it is.
But what's the most frustrating to me about it, Dan, is their pandering was very active. And meanwhile, the Democrats' reaction to it was very passive. And while both of them are stringing along their voters to get them to come out and vote on this hot topic, the Republicans were showing results. It took them 50 years, but they were showing results. The Democrats just kept saying, knowing what the Republicans were doing, they just kept saying, well, you better vote for us because the Republicans are trying this.
Well,
but they didn't do shit about it.
Which is why it should be really frustrating if you're a Republican that this party can't just take a fucking win. Because all you're doing now, if you're Mitch McConnell and the others that want to put forth an all-out abortion ban, all you're doing is galvanizing Democrats again. You're giving them something to get more voters to the polls to say, we have to stop this. Instead of just accepting the win you were already going to clean up in 2022, I still think they probably will. But you've made it more difficult on yourself. You've made it more difficult on yourself. You know, it's just like, even if that's something that you want to do, like, can you just let this victory marinate for a little while?
Right. It went really fast from, hey, we're going to make the government smaller and leave this up to the states, to all of a sudden, now we're going to make the government more bigger and oppressive really, really fast.
Yeah. Telling women that you, like, basically the argument for repealing Roe is like, hey, let's give it back to the states and the legislature. Let's let the people figure this out. That's what overturning Roe does.
Which constitutionally is an okay argument.
100%.
An objective constitutional argument to say overturn Roe because it has no constitutional basis. And calling Roe as something like that, regardless of what Roe is about, calling it objectively as an overstepping bounds of a constitutional basis, then sure.
But then going, abortion is wrong. Well, now we have to basically take Roe and turn it on its head and make abortion completely illegal when you, on a national scale, when you already had the win.
Overturning Roe and trying to make the country pro-life versus pro-choice are two different things. And then,
absolutely.
It's a dog that was chasing a wheel on a car that finally got a hold of it, and it's blowing up in their fucking face.
I love that. The car that caught the dog. The dog that caught the car. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That all of a sudden they're catching the wind. They're like, what do we do now? I don't know. Let's ban it completely. Fucking morons. No. Your whole point of getting rid of Roe v. Wade was to make the government smaller and make it to the states, which even still, that's an argument to be had.
And to extrapolate our point, Corey, pull up that Gallup poll, since I'm only working with one screen here this evening, to just show like how Americans, we talked about this a little bit last week, but just to show how Americans, really feel about abortion. And to me, I've never looked at a graph that made more sense in my entire life than this graph here. I'm actually going to make my screen full so I can actually see it here. So look at how flatline those numbers are. When it comes to legal under certain circumstances, 54% in 1975, and actually down to 48% in 2021. You're at 21% for illegal under all circumstances, and at 19% today. And then legal under all circumstances has gone up from 22% to 33%. But like the country is basically divided into thirds on this.
Yeah. And so that's like, so this right here shows you that, like, so this was an argument, when you want to hear about an argument that's pro Roe v. Wade, that it's a precedence that got it right based on the fact that these lines right here are basically flatlined, if that makes sense.
But if you're the GOP, if you look at these numbers and you're the GOP and you think that 19% of the country thinking abortion should be illegal under all circumstances is how you're going to, help yourself clean up even more in 2022, 2024, and even going forward. 19% of the country. 19%.
Yeah. And it's how much of that 19% do you think has a expiration date in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Ooh, boy. Yeah, that's morbid.
Yeah, it's a little morbid, but it's objectively it's a legitimate question.
But that's it. Send it back to the states. Take your victory. And the thing that makes it even more stupid if you're the GOP is you can easily campaign on that. See, hey, look, we got it done. We got Roe repealed. We got it done. You can use that in your platform as you run for whatever election you're running for, and all of your voter base and maybe and certainly certain independents are going to look at that and go, congratulations. Now, when you extrapolate it out into wanting to basically reverse Roe and turn it completely on its head and go the other direction, now you've given all of that momentum back. What the fuck are you doing? Neither of these parties can get out of their own fucking way, dude. They just can't get out of their own way.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely insane to me, dude. Like I'm so vehemently against the government trying to put their hand down a woman's pants or put their hand on anybody's body that it makes me so mad. But like trying to look at it like from the political and analytical view, like the stance that we're talking about right now.
The libertarian view. Let's be honest.
Well, no, I'm talking about like if you're trying to like look, but you're talking about the GOP itself getting in the way of itself. Like if I were in a position to where it's like, let's say I was like in charge of a campaign or something in some sort of political stance where it's like my main goal was to get a candidate into office for a party. And like you just said, yeah, just shut the fuck up.
You already got you won. You won.
Shut the fuck up.
And it's an election year. If you really want to push this, and I'll still be against it, and I'll still think it's a stupid, politically strategic way of going about things, wait till after the 2022 elections, for fuck's sake.
Right? Like, my God.
I mean, and they will ultimately, but it's like, I know Mitch McConnell's opened his mouth on this. I know there's been others. It's just like, just keep your mouth shut.
And it's just, I really want to drive the point home that right now we're pissed off more at Democrats than we are Republicans with this flimsy, unconstitutional precedent being overturned. That the Democrats had so many fucking chances to make this a goddamn law.
Mm-hmm.
And as we just discussed in the top of the show, over repealing an amendment or an act is way fucking harder.
And you have Nancy Pelosi's drunk ass going, oh, well, we better try and codify it now.
Oh, yeah, they're acting like they're surprised.
Of course, they do a vote and they lose.
But that's the whole point.
And you know what's interesting about that argument, too, is like I was looking on Twitter and, that 51% represents way fewer people than the 49%. And it's like, go back and take a high school civics class. Do you not understand how the Senate works? Every state gets 2 representatives. That's how we decided it. In the Senate. And the House is what's based on population. That's how you run a representative republic. That's how it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Oh, but they represent so many less people. It doesn't matter. This is how our government is set up, and make them be better. That's our job. That's our job.
It's frustrating too that everyone acts like they're fucking Ice-T in like season 9 of Special Victims Unit. They just act surprised every single time. It's actually a John Mulaney fucking joke when he talks about Ice-T, and he's like, yeah, season 9, Ice-T was still acting surprised that a little girl got raped. And they're like, Ice-T, yo, listen, we're in the Special Victims Unit. This is what we do. And he's like, you mean to tell me that this guy gets off on diddling kids? And they're like, yeah, Ice-T.
Great memory, this guy.
Yeah, Ice-T, that's you're in the Special Victims District. This is what happens.
Okay,
it fucking kills me that the whole Democrats are just acting completely shocked, completely appalled that the GOP is doing this when it's like they've literally been bragging about trying to make this happen for the past 50 fucking years, and you had every single goddamn chance to make it a law, but instead strung your voters along, vote blue no matter who because the Republicans are bad, and you didn't do shit about it.
However, Corey, if you're ready to shift gears here.
I am, because I'm just getting angry.
Yeah, me too. There was one particular member of the GOP that did some good things in the last week
Oh,
with
yeah.
regards to the misinformation and disinformation unit of the Biden administration.
My love-hate relationship with this man.
Rand Paul. Look, Rand Paul, what do you hate him? I can't say there are some things I disagree with Rand Paul on, but I can't say that I hate him for any reason.
So he gets into his own head of his whole little, I'm a Republican, but I have these libertarian views, to where it's like he enacts his libertarian tendencies in the most terrible ways.
I'll pull this down.
For example, well, one of the things that all of a sudden he was just a super libertarian about, decided to vote against, was when like the voting came up. So like there's in the reconciliation, there's money allotted for, or in the reconciliation like planning, there's money allotted for 9/11 survivors, right? Rand Paul votes against giving those money to 9/11 survivors.
Would you say that Rand Paul is kind of the squad of the right? You know, there's kind of this.
He's the outsider.
I'm a libertarian, but when push comes to shove, I'm going to cuck out to the establishment kind of thing.
No, I think that he is just living in his dad's shadow, and he's trying to find ways to get around it, but he's just doing it in all the wrong ways.
But he did something good this week. We'll go ahead and play the video, Corey. I just
And he did do something good this week, and that's why I said it's like a hot cold thing with him.
Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have
Yeah,
standards?
but here's the
to
problem.
ensure-
We
if I
can't
may
even
just
agree. We can't even
extremely-
agree what disinformation is.
This is
You
well-
can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how
Are
are
you-
ever going to come to an agreement on what
Say
is
it.
disinformation so you can police it on social media? I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
His face.
Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube?
I don't give a
we
fuck about your pillow.
We got an ad. I need the My Pillow guy up there. That wasn't him, but yeah. Look, I think it's almost like Rand Paul watches the show. Because I'm pretty sure he, more eloquently than we can and without drinking a lot of beer, pretty much said what we said last week. When you have when you have the government deciding what is disinformation. I mean, that is, to me, I don't understand how anybody can look at that and take it seriously, but there are people who take that seriously.
Yeah, and perfect example, as we're talking about the government spreading disinformation, just today, actually yesterday now at this point, like yesterday and 26 hours ago or whatever, the White House made a post and it says, when President Biden took office, millions were unemployed and there was no vaccine available. In the last 15 months, the economy has created 8.3 million jobs and the unemployment rate stands at 3.6%, the fastest decline in unemployment to start a president's term ever recorded. And our man, who I would love to have on this show, Spike Cohen, said, hey, Department of Homeland Security, how to report a tweet to your new disinformation governance board. The vaccine was available before Biden took office, and Biden himself got the vaccine before he took office. And it's like, so here we are. The government is spewing its own disinformation.
Can I point out a piece of is it? I don't know if this would be miss or dis or borderline, but the jobs thing. It was
That's
the same,
misinformation. Yeah.
it was the same thing that I said about Trump, right? You want to hear me shit on Trump for a second? I will, but it's going to tie into shitting on Biden, which is why we hate both fucking guys.
Yeah, they're both terrible. Biden's just quieter.
All the Trump people would talk about the economy. They would talk about the economy. They would talk about the economy. The economy is great. The economy is great. And look, it was fraudulently great with money being pumped in from the Fed to Wall Street. And
Yep.
you had Donald Trump touting stock market's never been as good. This is the best stock market we've ever had. The stock market is not the economy, first of all. And he also talked about high jobs numbers, low unemployment. And yes, Donald Trump had, before pre-COVID, had very good jobs numbers. But it's the same thing then as it is now, which is, yes, more people are employed. More people are employed. More people. Employment should not be the fucking standard.
Well, here's the thing too, is everyone forgets this part is employment. Yeah, it's down, but employment also doesn't include people who aren't in the active workforce. And that's people that aren't looking for jobs.
But
Now, the
how?
job participation rate is at the lowest it's ever been under Trump and Biden. So, yeah, you know what? If you have 100 million people in the country who are able to work and only 50 million of them are looking for work, then yeah, you can ignore the 50 million who aren't active in the job search and then just base it off the other 50 million and then pump your numbers up based on that.
Corey, the other side of that is, what about the working poor that we heard Bernie Sanders talk about all the time? Being employed is one thing. Being able to live a decent life with that employment is a totally different thing.
Right. Oh yeah,
Don't
3.8.
tell me about how many people have jobs.
Yep.
How
3.8
much
unemployed.
What is the median income versus cost of living? That's the number I want to know. That's the important number. And that's the number that tells you how good your economy actually is.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly. It's like, yeah, sure. We could have zero unemployment, but if half of those workers
If
are
everybody makes
working in
$5
piss
an
poor
hour,
jobs,
yeah.
where they're making such shitty money that half of their income is subsidized by the government, whether it's welfare, Section 8, food stamps, all those sorts of things. Is that really living the American dream? Having to live on the tit of the having to live on our tax dollars? And now that makes me sound like a Republican, sure. But let me finish what I'm saying. We can either put legislation in to make it to where these companies who are hiring millions and millions of people in the world in the country and pay them a decent wage to where they're footing the bill to take care of these people, or we can continue to do what we're doing to where we subsidize these companies to where they can pay these people a subpar wages to where me and you pick up the tab. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's like, sure, unemployment can be at 0%, but if half the people working are subsidized by the government because they're making such a low amount of money that they're getting WIC and all these different things, is that really the type of country that we want? And now this happened under Trump, this happened under Obama, this happened under Biden, this happened under Bush. But like,
I was looking for I was actually
no, you're good, man. I can keep going. It's just
I was trying to pull up some numbers of like how many people would in America could be considered working poor.
it's ridiculously high. You just go based off, what is it? 70% of Americans work paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider that working poor. I mean,
That's what
maybe
people
not,
think.
maybe not, right? But like, no, yeah, like if you can't afford, an $800 emergency, I'm sorry, like I would consider, maybe you have a home, maybe you have a car, you have a job, you have kids, you're feeding yourself, you're not starving, right? But that's not the American dream. You know what I mean? That's not. Everybody wants a savings account. Everybody wants to be like, oh man, if somebody gets sick, either I have good enough health insurance to cover it, or if I don't have that, at least have the money to be able to pay for whatever is needed, right? Like that to me is what every American wants. At bare minimum, right? Everybody wants more than that, right? Everybody wants to be rich, of course. Even the people that pretend like they don't. But
Yeah.
it's I can't find percentages. Maybe I'll pull some up and maybe we can talk about this a little bit deeper next week. Because there might be a topic that we're going to get to with union busting that we may not get to that this will fit into. But yeah, I mean, it's anecdotally, I mean, we all know a ton of those people, Corey. I mean, you and I I've always considered myself kind of a, lower to middle class guy, whether it was when I was growing up as a kid or who I am today. But we all know tons of people that, hey, dude, if somebody gets really sick or their car breaks down or whatever it is, they have no way to fix it.
Yeah, everyone's walking on thin ice in the whole country. A ridiculous amount of us are literally walking on ice that's cracking beneath our feet, and we're just doing our best. And like, I feel that to my core because of the fact that I'm in that little segment that people always forget about, where it's like, I don't make enough money. I don't make so much money that like money isn't a problem, but I make too much to where the government goes, oh, well, you make too much. We can't help you. And so I'm just getting fucked from both ends, especially during inflation. Like right now, 8% inflation, I'm losing money. My paycheck is getting cut. My hour, yours too. Our hour, like, you know what I mean? Like
everybody's paycheck is worth 6 to 7% less than it was
a year
ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. Oh, we need Trump back. That'll fix it.
Yep.
If that's your opinion, this probably isn't the show for you.
And if you think Biden's going to fix it, then this also probably isn't the show for you. Sorry. Give us a good review before you leave.
Yeah. I mean, I really only had on my wonderful vacation show here. I really only had one more topic, Corey. I don't have a monologue tonight. Sorry. I've been vacationing. I don't need to impress you people with a monologue every week.
Hey, what do we got? We got the Ukraine leak brags, and we got union busting.
I think we saved the union busting for next week. I think the because that's a story that's not going away.
Yeah. So stick around because next we're gonna dive deep into the fact that Biden, it might be Obama. He might have been in the bunny suit. Who knows who's calling the shots, because we know Biden's not. Biden is touting being the most union president since FDR, but as Amazon is constantly breaking the law, trying to bust up the unions, not being neutral, Biden's administration just granted him a $10 billion contract to Bezos and Amazon.
And yeah, the U.S. Postal Service makes Amazon deliveries, which is something that I learned like a week ago.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is, Biden. It's like, oh, you did. Yeah, obviously you don't give a fuck about unions. But just string along those votes. Vote blue no matter who, Dan.
I know, man. How obvious is it, though, that the establishment wants this war in Ukraine to go on as long as possible? I think we know that from the intelligence that came out earlier this week or late last week after we had done the show, which is basically the intelligence community bragging. That's what I'm just going to call it what it is. Bragging about the fact that they were finding and giving intelligence to the Ukrainians with regards to positions for generals, Russian generals, and also helping them take out a flagship. Now, what's interesting about this to me is the fact that this war is so bad, we want it to be over, and it's all on Putin. And look, you and I don't make no bones about this, Corey. Yes, a lot of this is on Putin, but I live in America, and I'm going to look into what my responsibilities are or my country's responsibilities are when it comes to the war in Ukraine. And sitting there and bragging about giving the Ukrainians intelligence, to me, is a signal that you don't want this war to be over, because it could have been over and it should have been over 2 weeks after it started. Because I think Putin's made this incredibly obvious, which is that he doesn't want NATO right next door to him. And yeah, he's going to make sure that doesn't happen by taking Eastern Ukraine. Now, the argument against that has always been, well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, well, what if What if he doesn't stop at Eastern Ukraine? What if he really does go for Kiev? And what if, oh my God, what if he goes after Poland after that? And it's like, yeah, if so many different scenarios that we can say
Yeah.
what if about.
Yeah, we've snuck our way into another war under the
With
eyes of Congress, and they didn't do shit about it. And instead, they decided to just see dollar signs from their campaign coffers and just go along with the flow. And like at first, like if you listen to the rhetoric, if you remember the rhetoric right when this first started, we were like, "Oh, we don't want war with Russia," and then it goes to what you're saying that our intelligence is literally just outright bragging about how we're sharing intelligence with Ukraine. That's led to the killing of a bunch of Russian generals and the flagship Muskov, the Russian ship, I think it's called Muskov, that got sunk in the middle of the Black Sea. And I had this video, Dan. We were actually looking for it a little bit ago when we were doing our show prep, and I figured I'd share it with you as a
Go
kind of a
ahead.
surprise because we
think I've
couldn't
seen
find
this.
it. But here's Seth Moulton, a Democrat.
I only have 10 seconds left for each of you, if you could. But if they wrap this in the Senate with a Ukraine funding and a COVID funding, you guys okay with that, Congressman Moulton?
Look, I'm going to support it because it's the right thing to do for Ukraine. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of politics involved, and there will be domestic debates here at home about other policies and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we've got to realize we're at war. And we're not just at war to support the Ukrainians. We're fundamentally at war, although it's somewhat through a proxy, with Russia, and it's important that we win.
Congressman Turner?
So there you go, have it. That's not just such saying it. We're at war with Russia. Seth Moulton said so.
But nobody asks why. Nobody. Oh, that's just a case, and we have to win. You haven't won a war since 1945, you assholes.
Oh, Korea, we technically kind of won.
Nope. Peninsula split, Corey. Didn't win that war.
You're probably right.
The Peninsula
you're right,
didn't
I
win
guess.
that war.
We didn't
Didn't
win
win
that war. You're
Vietnam.
right.
Didn't win either.
Goddamn
war.
Chinamen came in from the north and started to try to fight us because
Stop. At least we said
was it McCarthy? Yeah, it was McCarthy, who was a pretty decent general in the Asia Pacific World War II. But then, yeah, he just let a bunch of his soldiers accidentally cross the Chinese border.
And I love that too. It's like the word war just being thrown around so nonchalantly. Like we actually haven't been to war on an official level since World War II. The United States has never declared war since World War II.
Nope. I think the Iraqi wars were both voted on in Congress. One based on false pretenses, the other one based on
there was never an official declaration of war
in either one.
None of them. None of them.
Because I know they were voted on actually by Congress, but it wasn't an actual official declaration of war.
It was about, if I remember correctly, and any listener can correct me on this, and maybe we'll do sloppy seconds on this next week. If I remember correctly, it was a presidential decision to go into Iraq, and it was a congressional vote to stay, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it was never an official congressional declaration of war.
Because there was votes, because we actually bring up like the voting, for Operation Iraqi Freedom and the first Desert Storm, because that's one thing that Biden voted on for both. But I think you're right. I think was it? I think Operation Iraqi Freedom was a war that was voted on, but under false pretenses.
No, a military operation is not the same as an official declaration.
Oh no, yeah, it's equivalent to a police action.
Yeah,
it's a police action.
But Putin,
we're not going to war. It's just a police action. We're just trying to make sure there's peace in the world.
But there you have it. I mean, that's the rhetoric. We are at war with Russia. You understand how fucking dangerous of a thing that is to say?
Sending a bunch of 20-year-olds
just
to fly around each other with a bunch of weapons. What could possibly go wrong, Dan?
These are our representatives doing this shit, saying these things.
Yeah. And Kremlin's listening. Our Disinformation Governance Board may have blocked any sort of Russian news to us, but you know that the Russians are using those sound bites for their people. You know they are. You know that I guarantee you that sound bite was shared in Russia going, hey, here goes the West. They don't like us.
Well, you would think so because I mean I know that wasn't Tucker Carlson's show, but they do love Tucker Carlson, so you got to imagine they're paying pretty close attention to what Fox News is saying.
If they're paying people millions of dollars to make fake accounts on Facebook just to talk shit and get everyone riled up in America, you don't think they're paying someone to sit there and watch Fox News 24/7?
I don't know, man, but after this little brag by the intelligence community, by our own senators saying we're at war with we are at war with Russia and we need to win. I really want to see what Raytheon's quarterly numbers look like coming up here.
They're probably gonna go up. But what's interesting too is like we act like Russia doesn't know how we work and what we do.
Oh, you could argue they know how we work.
Yeah, their
better
intelligence
than
agency.
we know how they work.
Yeah, their intelligence agency already said, yeah, we knew that America was involved, but that's not just like. But then for some reason they're like, that's not going to stop us achieving victory. Which I don't even know what victory.
You know why? Is. You know why? Because they also know, while knowing that, they also know that we're not actually going to dip our toe in the water. We're no. And we shouldn't. And at least, God damn it, I hope we don't.
Yeah. All it's gonna take though, dude, is us. Russia's just letting us just keep moving. Like we're basically bragging about how we're involved now. Like what's next?
Just keep nudging that envelope a little bit closer to the edge of the table.
Yeah.
Just keep nudging that envelope. You know what's gonna happen? Eventually, that envelope's gonna fall. That envelope's gonna fall.
World War III starts.
And then we are actually.
Now that's not fear mongering. I'm not saying nuclear war, but we're on the cusp of World War III.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean nuclear war, but like, do you want to be at war with another nuclear power?
No, I can't say I do, Dan.
In no world is that a fun idea.
But don't worry, because everyone's distracted by Roe v. Wade. Keep everyone at home fat and sassy while we're on the cusp of the world ending.
You are so not wrong. Do you have anything else you have anything else you want to talk about?
I think we kind of pretty much covered everything we wanted to, didn't we?
A little bit of an abbreviated episode tonight. You'll have to forgive me.
By a half hour, because you're in Traverse City drinking wine and
lots of beer.
Yeah, lots of beer. That has double the ABV that you thought.
Yeah, I know. And I gotta go. I'm gonna go eat some jerk chicken,
and then drink more beer,
and then drink more beer and smoke more cigars. That's what we do. I'm
gonna go drink some beer too.
Enjoy that beer.
I'm gonna do my best. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do right now? Just because. So it's Left-Handed Brewing Company, and this is the Flamingo Dreams Berry Blonde. Now, if any of our listeners, the reason why I'm saving this can for right now is because if you're an avid beer drinker like Dan and I are, then you're gonna know what this sound means, and I'm gonna explain it after. But this is why I love these type of beers so much, and it's because of this right here.
Ooh, is it nitro?
Yeah, it's a nitro. You
know
that sound.
I thought I heard that nitro sound.
It's a berry blonde nitro ale. And I couldn't recommend this one enough. You got to pour hard. Look at that froth.
Oh.
Look at that froth. It's such a good beer, Dan. I don't know if you're going to be able to find it up there or not, but it's a good
Probably not, but I'm gonna not stand up until after I turn the cameras off because you just gave me an erection.
There you go. That nitro stout. All right, guys.
Tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast can be found on all your favorite podcast and social media platforms. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Libservative Pod. We are on Twitch at Libservative. We are on Facebook at Libservative. Reach out to us directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. You can find our blogs, or we can write our monologues, which Dan so irresponsibly didn't write this week because he's on vacation.
Hey,
at Libservativepod at
be happy I'm here.
Yeah, libservativepod@wordpress.com. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. Give us some ratings on the whatever your choice of podcast platform is. That helps us boost it up and helps more people hear this conversation. We like to hang out in the world of nuance and have good conversations. So if you like that, tell a friend where you heard anything you're talking about from us on this show, and come hang out. And for in the meantime, he's been Dan Griffin.
And he's been Corey Walsh. This has been Libservative, and we are out of here.